Hi everybody, thanks for joining me today. We're going to do a short tutorial on Shavasana where I show you some various options for relaxation pose other than the traditional corpse pose. So we've got lots of props available. You may want to gather as many things as you can. You can see I have a bolster. You could potentially use a pillow there. A firmer pillow is what you want. A couple of blankets. Something you can use for an eye cover, like an eye pillow. If you have blocks, 2 blocks. If you have a footstool, and I think I said this already, but make sure you have at least 2 blankets. Shavasana is perhaps the most important pose that you do. When we practice asana, our body stirs up different norepinephrines, different hormones, and Shavasana is what allows our body to release those hormones. And then our body can absorb all of the great benefits from the asana practice that we just did. So you never want to skip it. In a perfect world, you would lay in Shavasana for 10 to 20 minutes so that your body could fully relax. Remember, most of what we're doing in our asana practice, besides strengthening and building flexibility and balance, is balancing the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, which help us control our stress response. So the Shavasana is super important. And today we'll do multiple options for that position. Today we'll do multiple options for Shavasana, as well as I'll walk you through how to come out of each of them. The first option is perhaps my favorite, and it is called Stonehenge. Now, if you don't have blocks available, it may not work, but you can go ahead and try it with what you do have available, maybe a couple dictionaries or a steady sofa cushion or something, right? So first we'll set up our blocks vertically, and then you're going to take your bolster or your cushion and place it on top. Now you want the blocks to be far enough apart that they'll support both of your legs, but you don't want them so far apart that the middle of the cushion bends and dips when you put your legs on it, okay? The other aspect of this, you can see I have a blanket folded here, and I'm going to fold it one more time. So we don't want this to be too thick. We just want maybe an inch or so of fold to give our head some slight support. It keeps the chin at an appropriate angle, and it also gives some cushion for your head should you choose to lie in Shavasana for a longer period of time. So when it's time to lay down for this position, we'll go ahead and put our head on the blanket, and you'll put your calves or your lower leg on top of the bolster. We need to make some adjustments here. Now we get our eye pillow prepared, and we take our blanket and cover up. So you may not always need the cover. You may not like the cover. For me, notice I tuck it around one foot and then I pull it out. So for me, because I'm usually chilly, I always want to use the blanket. In this position, sometimes the lower part of my legs gets cold, so I might tuck it under to provide a little more cover. You never want to have the blanket covering your hands, though. We want our hands to be palms up, facing the ceiling. So once we're situated here, you can go ahead and place that eye pillow over your eyes. Make any final adjustments. Sometimes I take my hands behind my neck, gently lift up my head and lengthen the head to come to rest softly on that pillow, on that blanket. So again, we're in this position. Lower legs are on the bolster. Arms are out, kind of at a 45-degree angle or wherever they feel comfortable for you with the palms facing up. And you just begin to relax here. Maybe you take a swallow and let your tongue rest in the bottom of your mouth. And so that is our stone hinge. To come out, we'll gently remove the eye pillow, place it off to the side, and slowly take our legs off the bolster, stretching our right arm overhead, and roll over onto our right side, using that arm as a pillow. Maybe you take a couple exhales here. And then using the strength of your top leg, extending it, and the strength of your left hand, you can push into the floor and come back up to sitting. Good. So that is our stone hinge version of Shavasana. Now, another option for Shavasana, if you don't have the bolster or the blocks, is to use a footstool. Now, if the footstool is cushioned or if it has upholstery on it, you may not need to put a blanket there. But if it is plastic, you're probably going to want to put a blanket to cushion your lower legs. So I'll use another blanket right there. And we're going to put that on top. And we'll approach this one the same way we approached Stonehenge. I already have my blanket ready, so we're just going to keep that on top. And I'll bring my hips close to the footstool. Lift up my legs close to the chest and place them on top of that footstool. Try to get yourself centered. Whatever we're doing in Shavasana, you want to be symmetrical. Some people are so picky as to need the middle line of the blanket where the fold is, where the crease is, to have that going directly in the center of the body. Because you don't want to feel anything asymmetrical, anything off balance, right? Our entire purpose of yoga practice is to get our mind and body in balance. So we would do this the same way. Cover up. Again, if it's a super hot day and you've done a very intense practice, you probably don't need to cover up. However, I prefer the cover because in addition to keeping the body warm, it also provides some weight, right? And that weight on top of the body can be relaxing. So then we would place our eye pillow on our eyes and again let the arms fall open. So it's very similar to that Stonehenge. Both are options for you to have the same feeling of having the legs up. And it gives you some options based on whatever you have available at home. Again, not to come out, we would begin to wiggle the fingers and toes, right? Maybe you take a nice long stretch, the arms overhead, and then keep the right arm overhead as we bring the legs carefully off the stool and roll over to the right side. The right arm is long underneath you. Now, it's very important to remember here that we always want to go to the right side first. Okay, so when you're coming out of Shavasana, traditionally you go to the right side. And I don't know all the science behind this, but I have been advised by multiple teachers that that is because the heart is on the left. And so when you're coming out of the right, and so when you're coming out of Shavasana, You don't want to put any extra strain on your heart by leaning over to the left. So again, stretch the top leg out. Left hand pushes into the floor, and we come back up to sitting slowly and responsibly for the final greeting of a class or your practice. Good, so we'll move this blanket out of the way, and we'll go ahead and move the footstool out of the way. Good. So this next version also requires a bolster. I'm going to take this blanket at the top of the mat and fold it over one more time. Now I'm going to put the bolster vertically in the middle of the mat. Okay? We will scoot up with your hips as close to that bolster as possible, and slowly walk yourself back onto the bolster. Now your legs can stay here with the feet on the floor, or you can reach them out long in front of you on the mat if that feels okay on your back. You have the option here as well of bringing that blanket up onto the bolster. I like to put the blanket underneath my neck when I do that, so it kind of supports the arch of the neck, but lets the head stay relaxed. Now, once we're in this position, again, go ahead and take the blanket and cover up. It's worth noting here that if it's a super chilly day and I find the mat really cold, and sometimes for Shavasana, I'll lay a blanket on the mat below me. And I find that keeps my legs from getting chilly. Because the worst thing you can do is to allow yourself to get cold, right? Allow yourself to get cold during Shavasana. But you can't relax that way. Good. So then we'll take our eye pillow. Let the hands fall open. And relax here. Now, some teachers feel that this is a much better way to relax during Shavasana because for most people it kind of supports the natural curve of the spine a little more than traditional corpse pose. But you do what feels best for you. At the end of every practice, you always have your choice of how to practice Shavasana. And some days, what feels good may not feel good on another day, and that's okay. It's all about listening to where you are on any given day, in any given moment. Good. Now to come out of this one, walk your feet in, so the feet are on the floor and knees are pointed up to the ceiling. Right arm reaches along to the side, kind of up along the bolster, and we'll slowly roll off the bolster onto that right arm again. Stacking the shoulders, stacking the hips, like you're lying on your side in bed. Now stretch that left leg out. Left hand goes on the mat by the right elbow, and again push yourself up to a comfortable seat. Good. So those are 3 new variations for you for practicing Shavasana. Now finally, we'll go into our traditional Shavasana. So we can move the bolster out of the way, take our blanket back to the top of the mat. Now if you are someone that likes to have the bolster under your knees because maybe you have some low back pain, or maybe you've done a practice with a lot of back bending, then go ahead and have that bolster or cushion or rolled up blanket ready for you. Don't second guess. It's always better to prepare that Shavasana for the most relaxing and safest way. And then before you lay down. Maybe you want to go ahead and cover up. Or you can do like I did in the earlier version, which is throw it over yourself and move it down with one foot. Yeah? Walk yourself back onto your elbows maybe, and then slowly back onto the blanket that will support your head. Good. Now, if you don't need that bolster underneath your knees, then you can ditch it. Whatever feels good for you, right? And then don't forget the eye pillow. I'm going to make an adjustment here. Take my hands behind my head, lengthen the neck so it tucks the chin slightly. Now notice my feet are falling open. Now I'm feeling a little uncomfortable in my low back because my clothes are kind of stuck to the mat. So I'm going to make a little adjustment here. So again, just make sure that everything feels symmetrical and balanced. Nothing is bothering you, nothing's going to distract you. And let yourself just be. Now, one thing you can do here in this version of Savasana, or in any of them really, is do a quick body scan. So before you start to fully relax, check in and kind of glance inwardly from the head to the shoulders, to the elbows and the wrists, down the belly to the hips, the knees, the ankles, and see if anything feels like it needs adjusting, or see if anything feels like it's gripping. And if you feel some tension in those places, then consciously release them. Now I'm going to leave you here because maybe you're watching this after a practice already and you want to stay in your Shavasana. Or maybe you just are super relaxed. So stay here as long as you wish. I've already shown you how to come out in our other versions. So just take that into practice as you come out of your traditional Shavasana. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that this video will help lead you to deeper relaxation.